Hello and welcome to PondHub with Tim. This week I'm making a newt nursery and a nightclub. It's the very beginning of March, and this means that the amphibian breeding season has now started. The migration's underway, they're coming back into the ponds and they are starting to spawn. Today I'm thinking about the newts. In particular, I'm thinking about making sure that they have two things available for them. The first is that newts are visual breeders. So they need a space where the males can dance, the females can check them out, and that they can be seen. So you need to make sure that there's some areas in your pond where the surface is clear. So I'm focusing here, I'm away from the kind of water lilies and things that will obstruct the surface. And so I think of this area here as my newt nightclub. This is where the males will dance, the females will check them out. Now, once they've done that, the males will then look for a leaf and they will deposit a sac of sperm for the females, who will collect it, carry it around, and then use that to fertilize their eggs as they lay them. Newt sex life doesn't sound very, very good, does it? Anyway, so you're going to need leaves. You're going to need leaves nearby. You're going to need that for the males and then for the females. The female newts will lay their eggs on an individual leaf, which they will then fold over. So I've got my nightclub here, and I'm going to be planting down along this edge the kind of leaves I know my newts like. Newts will lay on a number of different leaves, water mint, water forget-me-nots, a whole range of plants. But in my experience, their favourites, without doubt, is the water forget-me-nots. In particular, the great crested newts, which are the endangered species that we have living in this pond, they will always, I find, choose those as their preferred spawning grounds. So I've got myself a whole set of plugs here of water forget-me-nots from Link's Pond Plants, and I'm going to be planting these into these trays. Trays, incidentally, are filled with aquatic compost.
I have a little plant, green and small. I water it each day.
Ordinarily, when you're planting pond plants, you think about the optimum planting depth for that plant. The planting depth, incidentally, is the difference between the surface of the pot, the surface of the soil, and the surface of the water. Now, water forget-me-nots, really you'd be looking for a planting depth between sort of 0 to 10 centimeters, about 4 inches, that much. However, they can thrive up to 20 centimeters. Well, they can tolerate up to 20 centimeters. And with these, I'm pushing for as much depth as I can. The idea being that for the newts, I want as many of the leaves under the surface of the water as possible. And I have to say, I'm not really thinking about the optimum well-being of the plants. I'm thinking about the optimal opportunity for the newts. So I'm pushing these right down to about 20 centimeters. So now, as always, once breeding season starts, you're really not trying to disturb the pond too much. So I'm going to try and just reach these in rather than go in, although I think with this one I'm going to have to just put 1 foot in the water. There we are. And then I just gently lower that down. There. So that's at quite a lot of depth for those plants. Like I say, the real interest for me is in the newts and not the plants. Sorry, guys. There we are. And I'll pop that one in there. Not quite so deep, that one. And I'll pop these here. These are slightly smaller plants, so I'm going to put those slightly nearer the surface. As they grow, I can push them further out so that more of the plant is underwater. So there we are. Hopefully, within a few days' time, those will start to really come on. They grow quite quickly. The newts will discover them, and then we might see some actual spawning going on. So there, what you can see, just about make out male. He's in front of the female and he's flicking his tail back and forth to try and attract her, and she seems quite interested actually. Yeah. And there we are, newts in the nightclub.